Good morning, everybody. How the devil are you? So, yes, as said, I'm Simon Robson. I work at TBWA, and today I'm going to be talking about this, 21st century brands. But before we get into it, let's actually have a look at the brand that really started and kicked off and was the impetus for 21st century brands.
Today we celebrate the first glorious anniversary of the Information Purification Directives. We have created, for the first time in all history, a garden of pure ideology, where each worker may bloom, secure from the pests, obeying contradictory laws. Our unification of laws is more powerful a weapon than any fleet or army on earth. We are one people, with one will, one resolve, one cause. Our enemies shall talk themselves to death, and we will bury them with their own confusion. We shall prevail.
On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
So there we go, quite an iconic ad, and as I said, really the impetus for so many of the 21st century brands, and Apple is still a client of TBWA's. So, as said, my name's Simon Robson. I've already changed my title in the course of about 30 seconds there. I'm actually a business partner and brand leader, and why I explain this is because this is very much our approach now towards the 21st century brands that we work with our businesses, with our clients. And it's very much about, pushing forward their brand and being their brand leader and being their brand ambassador in many ways. So I actually deal with client services, yes. I'm a strategist too, black clothes obviously. So you must be a strategist if you wear black. And work as also a copywriter too. It's how I started my career back in the day. Been at TBWA, now going into my 5th year. And I also work for Disruption Works, which our gracious host Ville is also involved with. So we deal with it's the kind of strategic arm of our operation in Helsinki. I've worked with quite a lot of brands over the years. If you've not already picked up from my accent, I'm originally from Britain. And I've worked for global agencies in the UK, mainly running their digital departments. For international accounts in the main, as you can see from those up there. And you will see there are some Finnish brands up there too. So I have been in Finland before, but we'll get to that in a moment. And prior to moving to Finland 4 years ago, I used to be the CEO of Global Beach, which was one of the first digital agencies in London. So Digitalist is my thing. And as said, I have fond, if sometimes a bit hazy memories of Finland at the, let's just say, the turn of the century. I think we could also include the early stages of this century in this. So there we go. Up on the top left, we'll see the WAP phone. Does anybody remember those? Whatever WAP was.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So we all had phones shaped like bananas. I actually used to work for Grey Interactive back then. It was the days of Grey Interactive and Razorfish and who else? Icon Media Lab and all those guys. So it was the dot-com boom, I suppose. And we all had CXX with Jenny there. I said CXX. And we used to frequent places like Soda and Kerma. Anybody remember those? Anybody used to go there? Yep. We were there. Where were you when we were getting high? And then some of us even opened model agencies. Who's that handsome guy on the right at the bottom down there? Looks familiar somehow. And then the brothers Ritzler bought some Lamborghinis, remember that? And then my business partner, who goes by a pseudonym by the way, wrote a book about it all. So a factual account of what happened at the turn of the century. But anyway, enough about memory lane, let's move on. Back to the 21st century. So, the rules of brand building and marketing have changed. Not completely, but in many ways they have. There are some constants, but in many ways you will see a paradigm shift with the brands I'm going to talk about. So the best practices for, for mass media were developed back in the day, back in the 50s and 60s. We've all seen Mad Men and all that kind of thing. And the same rules do not completely apply when we look to the 21st century brands. So, what was the most valuable brand in '95? Anybody got any ideas? Anybody? No? You might not be that surprised to find out it was. Anybody smoke? Still. Anybody admit to smoking? Still. Yeah, good. Yeah, so brand used to be what you said it was. Basically, he who shout the loudest was the brand that everybody knew. I say Bentley's a luxury car, you believe me. It's not really quite that way today, as we'll see. The new reality is somewhat different. So what's one of the fastest growing brands now? Yes, many of you probably got here this way today, Uber. So what do we surmise from this? That we smoke less fags, but we don't do half as much walking anymore. So, what's right, what's wrong? But a new reality needs a new approach, absolutely. And this is the TBWA bit. We are the disruption company, I think probably most people know that. But this has made us very attractive to these 21st century brands. What we represent is very attractive to the way they behave and the way they think and their ethos. And these are some of our brands. I started with Apple, but of course there's Airbnb and Snapchat and Netflix and so on. And these are the 21st century brands, really, a very good cross-section example of these 21st century brands. You're all familiar with these. And I think you're already starting to see, even in their visual identity, that things are not quite as they used to be. The copywriters will be going out of business soon. So, we've learned very much from working with 20th century brands that, it's become the inspiration for agency transformation. We, as agencies, or in our case, a creative collective, as we're now called, are changing very much in line with the brands that we represent, and the brands that we partner with, should I say. So, what's Silicon Valley taught us? Well, it's very, very entrepreneurial, isn't it? I mean, we all know that. They're all about inventing the new economy. Products first and, metrics driven. It's a fast turnaround and everybody's all in. Everybody's an evangelist. And it's all great. It's good. But it doesn't necessarily work with the traditional agency model. Back in the day, and to a certain extent still now, brand was always considered first. Myself, I talk to my clients very often. I have clients like GE, for example, and I always talk initially about the brand and how the brand is the impetus and the cornerstone for everything. But, the agencies were very service-driven, and that's great. We don't tend to carry clients' handbags in photo shoots quite as much as we used to, but we're still, that's how it goes. There's a formula for handling accounts. There's a way to do things, and it's been very linear, and it's literally boxes, and it's, balls on charts telling us we go from this step to that step to the other step. But it isn't necessarily the way to be. If we look at Brian here, he doesn't think it's necessarily the right way to go. We basically at TBWA, we wouldn't be working with Airbnb if we weren't going to change everything that we did before, everything that we stood for previously. Firstly, products and brands have become much the same thing, and it's not necessarily about the big bang anymore. It's about these constant little interactions with things within the brands and the products. Companies, brands, they have different motives these days. They have different ethoses. For Airbnb, it's all about the hosts, and Google want to make people cry, and Facebook, interaction's the main thing. And with Apple, they want to stand for, they want their products to be what they are. They want their products to stand for their ethos. So how do we tackle this? When we're looking at Snapchat, they're not even interested in a brand vision because it gets in the way. That could be quite terrifying to a branding agency, to be told that. But, you have to change, you have to adapt. And likewise with Twitter, they build a product, they grow a community, they want to get rich and famous. Their brand is secondary. Brand is a secondary thought. It almost gets in the way in terms of what they want to do. They're more about usability and how to understand to use Twitter and that kind of thing. So, 21st century advertising looks like this. As I said, the copywriters will soon be out of business, won't they, with ads like that. And it's about just being there. It's about being loud and proud and just being there with an identifiable symbol, and that's enough. So Twitter, look no further ahead than a quarter. And Snapchat wants no vision, it just gets in the way. And this example from Grab Taxi's CEO, I love the bit where he talks about fancy marketing stuff. Yeah, we used to do fancy marketing stuff. I mean, we still can do fancy marketing stuff. But it's a really interesting approach. There's a problem, and they provide a solution, and that's how they tackle things. They don't think, okay, let's create a brand, and then what does the brand do? It's like back in the day when the engineers created great products, and then they said to the marketing people, oh yeah, and we better market this, not the other way around, not seeing what the challenge is, not seeing what people need. So, this is what we surmise from this. We need to market the story through the product, not market the product through a story. So, copywriters and storytellers, welcome back. Thinking about Facebook, it's all about experimentation. It's about this lab mentality. It always has been. You've all seen the slogans and sayings on the top deck there. Done is better than perfect, break things and move fast, all of that stuff. And that's how they operate. It's a culture of prototyping. And many brands, follow this way to be. Experience is absolutely everything. Think about Airbnb. They have 1 million unique homes, whereas big hotel chains have kind of identikit rooms across the world. Airbnb is an exceptionally interesting company for us, and really their behavior has revolutionized so many things. Just this week in London, my colleagues were sending stuff through from the Barbican Centre. If you don't know Future Labs, by the way, check it out. Check out the website for Future Labs. It's really, really interesting. So the trend briefing was happening in the Barbican Centre in London this week. Big thing, poignant and surprising experiences will win. So it's still very much the order of the day to create an experience that is absorbing. So, powering communities. When again thinking about what Airbnb do, I need something, you have something, let's get together. As they say, we'll make the world a friendlier place. And it's very interesting, but very simple thing when you think about how to tackle things. What have you got? Like, I understand in Finland, fairly recently, there's been share your sauna situation, which is, quite an interesting, I hope it catches on. It's quite an interesting movement, like the Ravintolapaiva and that kind of thing. Great, fantastic. Okay, so it's about the whole thing these days. It's not just the 1,600 employees at Airbnb. It's the whole lot. It's the 56 million guests. They're all part of one community, and that's how Airbnb view their organization. And it's a really refreshing, kind of humanistic way to approach things, I think. Facebook, well, I mean, everybody's in a Facebook-like business now, aren't they? Everybody wants to kind of rally the employees. Everybody wants to encourage the stakeholders. Everybody wants to solve a problem, address a challenge. And really, that is something that was really brought on very much by the Facebook principle. And Apple, they have identified that one of the most important things in their armory is their employees. A huge percentage of their employees actually work in retail. And we've all been to the Apple shops and we've seen, how the little things that the guys in the blue t-shirts do, and it's all part of the brand, service. So, 5, what's the change? Well, millennials and Gen Zers, as they're called, are really changing the face of everything. They're changing the way we buy, the way we absorb content, everything. They're literally changing and disrupting, that word again, every industry. Okay, think about cars and the whole movement in the UK and America and probably here, where you can actually borrow somebody's car. And it could be a threat to the car industry. And it's the same with, these brands. It's access rather than ownership. These guys, the millennials and so on, they don't want to own things particularly. I even heard a story about one of my peers in London renting out his hiking boots for £1 a day. Remarkable. Everything's for sale. I don't know whether you're familiar with this. It's been around a couple of years, I think. And you can actually share somebody's umbrella, which is quite bizarre, isn't it, really? You put a light on top of your umbrella, which is activated by an app on your phone, and other people with the same app can see where you are when it's raining and pair up with you under their umbrella. The world's gone bloody crazy, hasn't it? I mean, imagine that in London. The light would never be off. Coming closer to home, actually, this is opposite our office. So there's this cafe in Helsinki where you can actually go along and pet cats, which is really quite remarkable when you think about it. What's what's not to like? Go and have a cup of tea, stroke a couple of pussies, go home with a clear conscience. I mean, fantastic idea. So experience beats product, hands down. People would rather buy. It's like when you say, what do you want for your birthday? Oh, I just want to do something. Let's just go and do something. This is the thing, experience. And a great deal of people, 80%, would rather spend their money on these experiences than actual products that they would then own. It's a really key point. So how do we work with this new reality? This all sounds very good, but how do we work in practice? How does TBWA go about this, for example? Well, firstly, it's not committee decisions anymore. It's gone to the gang of four, so not so much the whole lot, but the 4 key level people. I had to put in this slide, didn't I, really, being British? Presentations to conversations, So many of us are so absorbed with social media, we have perhaps forgotten to a certain extent how to interact with people in real life. So it was a good idea to practice that one. And, try to have conversations, not just dry presentations. Everybody probably approves of this one. No more big meetings where everything's supposed to be covered in a wanna. Have weekly meetings instead. Have quick meetings. Try to do things very quickly. As said, I work on the account side, and I'm also creative. So I really like short meetings. We get a lot more done. And think about the way you get paid, and think about the way you demand payment. There's different models these days. There's different ways to do things. You don't need to be paid in the traditional way, and I'll give you an example of that. So, with Airbnb, our client, we actually get paid on a per-night basis. So, if they are successful, we are successful. I don't think so many people know this. This is from The Drum, another publication that I recommend you check out. So really, we have to be very good, or else they don't sell and we don't get paid. The proof of the pudding, as we say in England. So, this is, again, a scary prospect in my situation, in a way. But if you're a disruptive creative ideas company, then they want you all the way, because, you can get their brand into the culture, and this is a key thing that I will say time and time again. We need to place brands into the culture, and only that way can we make a change. And this is the TBWA bit, but we believe in the 21st century, putting as I said, pretty much just as I've just said, so there you go. That's what we do, because only then can we create a powerful competitive advantage, if we are actually part of the culture. And we're not elitist or anything like that. We're not like many of the old brands used to behave. We don't just make a big noise and then people buy it. So, in summary, Simon says, conversations, not presentations, as he stands here giving the presentation. Speak their language. Please, 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 no marketing bollocks. That means bullshit in other language. Community first. Think of the community. What is your community? What can you serve? And behaviors, not campaigns. Very, very important. And new ways to get paid. Super important. But never, 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 and always, always kill boring. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Simon. Juho. Click one backwards. Oh. All right. Thank you, Simon, and intriguing presentations. We've heard a great story, or a great brand, or a great experience in the morning, and some other cases around that. A few points I want to pinpoint on your presentation. First of all, in your title, it doesn't say digital anymore. When I look back at your CV, it's like 10 years before this moment it's been digital. So not the one on the program or the one on the slide said it. And then you showed those 6 companies. When I show some of the same examples to companies, they say that these are tech companies. Although there's an accommodation company, there's an entertainment company, a media company, and so on. So is that going to happen to companies as well? And are we sort of losing is the digitalist terminology actually going away?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just really, it's a bit of a trend, isn't it? Back in the day when I told you we all worked at Razorfish and Grey Interactive and all that, somehow we were a bit embarrassed about the term digital, and Hassan were doing great ads and so on, a Second Grey. And we sort of hid away a bit with the digital because it was new and dangerous and so on. And then, you know, everybody wanted to be digital. And more recently, I think, you know, people are saying things like, well, you know, it's not the media, it's the message and that kind of thing. So, no, I haven't lost my digital soul. I'm still very much a digitalist at heart. And yeah, that's where I cut my teeth. I've been in the digital business pretty much since the digital business began. But we don't tend to separate those too much these days. I mean, for me, it's about what works best for the job in hand. And to the second part of your question, I think, you know, they are content companies, they're entertainment companies, they're accommodation companies, but they are using digital techniques to get to the community and to make a message stronger than it ever could be with any other media. And it's, you know, simply how we communicate these days. So I think, you know, there's always a place for the digitalist thinking. And, you know, people say things, don't they, like, we want to be more digital. Yeah, exactly, so.
Yeah, and maybe those then have succeeded in that. You talked a lot about experience, culture, and the way we sort of, as the target group, experiences being a part of the brand instead of experiences actually owning the product. Is that something that in brands and in marketing sort of replaces the product P in Kotler's classic 4 Ps? So,
yeah.
So is it the experience and the story that's now sort of the thing to sell?
I think so very much. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think it really is. The product quite often is secondary, if there is a product at all. I think it is secondary. People are totally bowled over by experiences, and it's a simple thing. You know, when you think about it, why wouldn't they be? Why wouldn't people want to be, you know, involved in an experience which a brand has created nonetheless? But it isn't necessarily about the product. I think, you know, there's always an element you have to think what the product is and what the product does, but it's how it makes you feel, and that's the experience.